Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa afdalu salati wa atammu taslim ala Muhammadin wa ala ali bayti tayyibin at-tahirin al-ma'sumin. Assalamu alaikum, dear brothers and sisters, wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to another episode of The Valiant, where we look to celebrate and commemorate the most influential individuals in our history, inshallah. I am your host, Ibrahim Al-Ansari, and I am joined by our esteemed guest, Samahta Sayyid Al-Nawab. Assalamu alaikum, Sayyid.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
How are you doing today, Sayyid?
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Alhamdulillah.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very well actually, especially, do you know what, subhanAllah, the effect of clothing, the clothing really does have an effect. When you wear white and when you see the individual sat in front of you smiling on a wilada event, honestly, it builds an atmosphere.
Yes, the actual event, knowing that, for example, the day that you're going to go through is a day of happy occasion for Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So naturally you want to rejoice, naturally you want to be happy, because the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam on many occasions said يَفْرَحُونَ لِفَرَحِنَا وَيَحْزَنُونَ لِحُزْنَا. So this should be apparent on us,
Alhamdulillah.
even if we are going through hardships and difficulties. But the hadith says al-mu'min bushruhu fi wajhi wa hammuhu fi qalbi. So even if you're having difficult times, if you're not feeling happy, but in front of other people, you should be smiling and be happy, inshallah.
Ahsantum. So on top of all the knowledge that we will receive today, we have received some motivation for the day as well. Jazakumullah khair, Sayyidina. So of course, today we are celebrating the birth anniversary of Imam Al Hadi, alayhi afdalu salati wa salam. And actually, do you know what, just to dive into this topic of the life of Imam Al Hadi alayhi salam, and I think it's important for us to just give a general introduction before we talk about specific questions regarding his life. So generally speaking, who was Imam Al Hadi?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin, wa la'natullahi ala a'daihim ajma'in ila abadil abidin. Al-Imam Al Hadi Ali ibn Muhammad الملقب بالعسكري. He was born in the year 212 after the hijrah of the Holy Prophet of Islam, in an area, in a village called Suraya or Sariya, which was a village owned by Imam Musa ibn Ja'far al-Kadhim salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, in the outskirts of Medina. Imam Al Hadi alayhi salam was born to his father Imam Al Jawad and his mother, who the narrations narrate many names for her, but mainly she was known to be Sumana. She has another name as Sosan. And narrations narrate, books of history narrate that she was from North Africa, from Maghrib, from Morocco. The narrations narrate Sumana al-Maghribiyya. And they say that she was Walad, meaning that she was taken as a captive or as a hostage, and they brought her to the city of Medina as part of a conquest, or as part of moving maids and servants from one location to another in the Islamic Ummah. And thus she was chosen by Imam Al Jawad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi to be his wife and the mother to Imam Al Hadi salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So he was born in the vicinity or the outskirts of the city of Medina, in Suraya, and that was 212 Hijri, was like he spent 8 years with his father Imam Al Jawad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, because Imam Al Jawad was killed and martyred in the year 220 after Hijrah. So he spent 8 years under the care and teachings of his father Imam Al Jawad salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. And we know Imam Al Jawad alayhi salam, he himself he lived a short life. He himself was killed in a very young age. So here the responsibility of Imamah, as was given to Imam Al Jawad at a very young age, also was given to Imam Al Hadi at a very young age. Imam Al Hadi salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, in a later stage of his life, he marries an individual again from North Africa, this time from the specific location of Egypt today, someone by the name of Salil Al-Nubiyya or Al-Nuwabiyya, namely after a location called Al-Nuba in Egypt. And she gave birth to Al-Imam Al-Hasan Al-Askari salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi. Imam Al-Hadi also has, as narrations narrate, there are narrations narrate that he had only an Imam Al-Askari, but there are stronger narrations that narrate that he had other children.
Yeah. And
I would quickly go through them. Other than Imam Al-Askari salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, there is Sayyid Muhammad ibn al-Imam Al-Hadi, who is known as Sayyid Muhammad Sab' al-Dijal. He is buried in the area of Dijal in Iraq, in the close proximity of the city of Samarra. He had another son called Al Hussein. Now again, that we have to study and investigate the books of history in regards with the children of Imam Al Hadi. But again, as I said, Al Hussein was another child to Imam Al Hadi, another son. Imam Al Hadi also had a son called Ja'far, which inshallah when we come to discuss the narrations of Al-Ghayba, or the life of Imam Al-Mahdi alayhi salam, wa ajal Allah ta'ala farjah sharif, we will mention Ja'far because he had a role to play in the events of the Salatul Janazah, for example, on the Imam Al-Askari sallallahu and then Sayyida Hakima is also known to be one of the daughters, and also she played a very important role in the birth of Imam Al-Mahdi salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So in a nutshell, this is who Imam Al-Hadi. He is the 10th Imam of the Imams of the Shia of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and he was born, as I said, in Suraya and passed away and is buried in the city of Surraman Ra'a, Samarra today in Iraq.
And you know what? I think that would just before I ask about that transfer between these two cities, because he was obviously born in one city and then all of a sudden you're talking about him being martyred in a different city, or that's the place of his burial. And we know that the life of Imam Al-Hadi, of course, especially during I think it was about 40 years potentially, something along those lines, just over 40 years.
41 years and months.
Yeah, ahsantum, so 41 years. So it'd be quite interesting to look at that transition. But before I do that, because some viewers, especially for example from the Pakistani community or the Indian community, sometimes are surprised when Imam Al-Hadi is referred to as Imam Al-Hadi, because most commonly he's referred to in those communities as Imam Al-Naqi.
Yeah.
So does this really make a difference? Does he have other titles? Is there a specific title that we should call him by, or does it not really matter?
As I said, as I referred to one of these titles as Al-Askari, because not only Imam Al-Hasan, his son was called Al-Askari. Where did this Al-Askari come from? It's good for the brothers and sisters to go and investigate the titles of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, because it comes to them either because of certain events that they lived through, or because of attributes that they carried and they had and they were gifted with. Imam Al-Hadi and Imam Al-Askari alayhim salam, Imam Al-Hasan ibn Ali are called Al-Askariyain because they lived in a location where there was a congregation, was a military base for the Abbasides. In that location in Samarra, it was a military base for Bani al-Abbas. Of course, we know that the army of Bani al-Abbas, specifically in that time, the generals were either Persians or Turks. Why these two different nationalities? Is because sometimes there were wives to those rulers that were either Persians or they were Turks, or sometimes their wuzara were either Iranians, Persians, or Turks. So they wanted to make a stronghold for themselves in that part of the world. So they used to bring whoever they felt close to protect them, because the Arabs, they were going through riots and revolutions, so they didn't feel safe bringing Arabians to protect them. So they had to bring foreigners, because foreigners, they had very strong allegiance to Bani al-Abbas, especially the Persians and the Turks. Here, one of the titles of Imam Al Hadi salamullahi alayhi is called Al-Askari, referring to the military base they lived the majority of their life in. Another title is Al-Najib, or Al-Murtada, Al-Hadi, Al-Naqi, as you said, the pure one, Al-Alim, Al-Faqih, Al-Amin, Al-Mu'taman, Al-Tayyib. Surprisingly enough, he is also known by the title of Al-Mutawakkil and Abu al-Hasan, meaning referring to his son Al-Hasan salamullahi alayhi. So I know some of the viewers, some of the brothers and sisters from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they might know Imam Al Hadi by Al-Naqi. Of course, we know Imam Al Hadi by Al-Naqi, Ali ibn Muhammad al-Naqi, or Hassan ibn Ali al-Askari, or Al-Taqi. We know Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. These are titles given to them because of, as I said, their what they showed, what they practiced, or their behavior in the general public. So Al-Naqi comes from Al-Naqa, from the pure akhlaq, the pure knowledge, and Naqa al-ilm, and how they practiced and how they lived their lives amongst the Muslims at that time. So there's nothing wrong with knowing an imam by his title, and I encourage that we, the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we try to implement some of those titles in our lives. As we don't only take them to be titles, because we know there are Sayyid Hassani, there is Sayyid Husseini, there is Sayyid Radawi, there is Sayyids who are Taqawi, and there are Sayyids who are Naqawi. And they say we are Naqawi, referring to that their lineage goes back to the children and the sons of Imam Al Hadi and Naqi salamullahi alayhi. But let us also take these titles to have a physical and an emotional and a spiritual effect on our lives as well. So
do you know what, actually, because as you were talking about his titles, the next question actually becomes even more interesting, because I told you that I will be asking you about that transition from where he was born to where he spent the rest of his life, or the majority of his life. And now, first of all, it seems that's just another city that he moved to. Just like, for example, other imams moved to different cities, or just like the Prophet, for example, migrated from Mecca to Medina. But now you are telling me it's not just a city. No, it's a base. It's an army base. So that becomes even more confusing. What was the reason? Why did he leave to Samarra?
As is the case with the corrupt rulers throughout history, they cannot bear to live in a society that there is another or a group of people that attract people towards them because of their attributes that they possess. In relation with the corrupt and the tyrants that came to assume leadership, and they stole and they took positions that they were not referred to by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in terms of Bani Umayyah, Bani al-Marwan, Bani al-Abbas, they did not carry any of the attributes that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam had. For example, Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam had knowledge. And naturally, people are attracted towards an individual if they see him knowledgeable, because knowledge is a way to live a happy life, to live a life out of away from of misfortunes, away from deviation, away from troubles and problems. So one of the ways that Bani al-Abbas, and specifically the later hukam and the tyrants, try to control those situations, to take away people or take away Ahlul Bayt from amongst the people, was to take them away from the strongholds, from the strong bases of Ahlul Bayt, and exile them to different locations that people couldn't reach them.
Yeah.
So you ask me why the transition, why the migration, why the movement from one city to another, is because these hukam, these tyrants and these corrupt rulers, they feared to lose their positions amongst people, because they ruled with fear. They ruled in a way where they made people fear them by violence. So the best way to get people to be always in that state of fear, and to pay their allegiance and be obedient to the government, is to take away Ahlul Bayt. Because the presence of Ahlul Bayt amongst people was to always lead them towards the right path. And the right path always led them to Ahlul Bayt. It doesn't lead them to the corrupt rulers, because that's not the right path. When you want to follow Ahlul Bayt, you should follow them in everything. And one of the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, it directs you towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the path of Bani al-Abbas or Bani Umayyad does not take you to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why they moved Imam Al Hadi salamullahi alayhi, as it was the case with the previous Imams salatullahi wa salamu alayhim ajma'in, is that because Medina is always the hometown, the homeland of Ahlul Bayt. They like to be in Medina because their grandfather is buried there, their fathers are born and buried there. So they would always want to stay in those holy locations. These are sanctuaries for Ahlul Bayt. So, and Medina was always known to be the base of knowledge.
Yeah.
The holy city of Medina was always known to be the base of the revelations, where Allah revealed His verses, where knowledge was revealed, where happy occasions occurred in the life of Muslims in the holy city of Medina. So that city was very important for not for only the Muslims and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, but also by the tyrants. They had to look and observe what was happening in that period of time that they ruled. So the governor of Medina would always write to the so-called Khalifa that if you are interested in keeping Medina amongst your control and under your control, then take away the Imam of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and bring him closer to you. So they moved Imam Al Hadi salawatullah wa salamu alayhi and his son, because they know it runs in the blood. They know Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the next successor is going to be his son. Because as we come inshallah and speak about the events of Ghadir Khum, we will explain that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the event of Ghadir, not only in Ghadir, on other occasions as well, he named the Khulafa after him.
Yeah.
So the oppressors and the tyrants, they knew who is going to become the leader or the Imam after the previous Imam. So that's why they were always looking out. They were investigating. They had their spies looking out and trying to find, for example, Imam Al Hadi or the young Imam Al Askari.
Yeah.
So they can capture them, place them under house arrest, move them from one location to another, so they don't continue. They stop them from continuing the path of Imam. So they moved Imam Al Hadi from Medina to Baghdad, and then from Baghdad to Samarra or Surra Marra'a, which was the military base for Al Mutawakkil Al Abbasi. So he can be under the control and under his sight, to know who is in connection, who the Imam speaks with, how he teaches, or how he answers the questions that comes to him, and if he was actually planning for a revolution or an uprising when he is sending out and receiving these letters and this information.
Ahsantum. Do you know what this is, generally speaking, to be the fear that you find in the Abbasid Caliphate in general? Is this person planning an uprising? Is he planning an uprising? Mostly because you find that between themselves, they plan uprisings against each other. The father would plan an uprising against his son and against his brother, and the son would against the father, etc. But this is how they lived anyway. However, you mentioned Al-Mutawakkil Al-Abbasi, and you also mentioned, for example, the name Mutawakkil was mentioned twice because you also mentioned it as one of the alqab of Imam Al Hadi alayhi salam. Yeah. And that name always rings a bell because it's a name that takes us back to potentially not an event as happy as we are celebrating today, but it's important to understand the stances that Imam Al Hadi took in these instances where he raised the grave of Imam Al Hussein alayhi salam to the ground multiple occasions. He ordered for the cutting of the hands of the Zuwar. He ordered for the Za'irin to pay a fee in order to perform the ziyarah of Abu Abdullah Al Hussein alayhi salam. All of this while the Imam is under house arrest in Samarra. What did the Imam do about this?
Of course, Al-Mutawakkil Al-Abbasi, he was very brutal. And if you go and read his life and investigate that period that he lived and ruled, you would find that out of the rest of the Abbasi corrupt rulers, he was one of the most vicious individuals that did not refrain from showing his hatred against the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and their followers and the Shia. How? There were many examples that we can give. One of the examples is that there was a certain protocol that Bani al-Abbas used to abide by. For example, if I can take quickly Al-Ma'mun. Al-Ma'mun was an individual that had many instances that he was very strategic in his planning. And part of his strategy was to bring the Alawis or Ahlul Bayt and deal with them in the most political manner to attract them, to grab their attention, to be part of the leadership, for example, as in the case of Imam Al-Rida and Al-Ma'mun. So when Al-Mutawakkil came and assumed the leadership, he because Al-Ma'mun lived in a period of time where it was the doors of knowledge were being continuously opened. The other civilizations were coming towards Baghdad and Marw. There were lots of debate and dialogue. We will discuss that, or we have discussed that in the other episodes. But Al-Mutawakkil, no, he was more a traditionalist. He wanted to, he brought the ruwat of ahadith and the ulama, the traditional ahadith, closer, and he pushed away the the so-called open-minded ulama, those who were investigating the other cultures and other civilizations. So he was more traditionalist. He brought the ruwat of the ahadith closer to him, meaning that he pushed away the Mu'tazilis, the other ulama that were always in the path of investigations and bringing up new rulings and more teachings for people to be following. Which meant that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam were part of those groups of people that they were exiled, or they were pushed away from the actual system of the hukuma, the system of the government. So Al-Mutawakkil, why was he so vicious and brutal? Is that he carried this hate So he always pushed his own, the ulama al-bilad, the wa'ad al-salatin, to always plant deviation and plant hatred and plant seeds of differences amongst the Muslims, and specifically amongst the Shia. That's why when we study the life of Imam Al Hadi, we see that Imam Al Hadi salawatullahi wa salam alayhi, he had to play a very important role in putting a stop to for example, the beliefs of the Golat.
Yeah.
There were certain groups who associated themselves to the Shia that were so dwelled into the fellowship of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that they started associating attributes to Ahlul Bayt, specifically to Imam Al Hadi salawatullah alayhi, that Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam said nazzahuna anir rububiyyah.
Yeah.
This Golat, they used to believe that Imam Al Hadi salawatullah alayhi, he was Allah wal a'yadu billah, and that he has sent certain individuals to be his messengers and his prophets. For example, in terms of Tahrif al-Quran, al-Mutawakkil, through his ulama, he used to plant seeds of the fact that the Shia are deviants. Why? Because they believe in Khalq al-Quran or Tahrif al-Quran.
Yeah.
And again, this is one of the ways that Imam Al-Hadi had to fight and put a stop against these devious paths and these ulama who are trying to highlight or bring up to the surface the fact that these Shia or these Imams of the Shia, they are deviants from the main path of Islam, and the main path of Islam is al-Mutawakkil and his ulama.
Yeah.
And again, he by a way of stopping Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam or the Shia of Ahlul Bayt was again to stop their rituals and their important events in the calendar and the life of the Shia, which again we come to the whole issue of the ziyarah of Imam Al Hussein salamullahi alayhi, and how the revolution and the remembrance of Imam Al Hussein, not only at the event of Ashura and in the life of Imam Zayn Al Abidin and Imam Al Baqir, was something still attracting people towards being rebellious or being revolutionists, but also until the later stages, until after the life of Imam Al Hadi and Imam Al Askari, because Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they knew that the only way, or one of the most important ways to keep the Muslims on the right track, was the issue of Imam Al Hussein and the ziyarah of Imam Al Hussein alayhi salam. That's why Al-Mutawakkil and Ben Al-Abbas in general, they feared people going towards the ziyarah of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. One of the things that you mentioned was he ordered for his army to go and plow the grave of Imam Al-Hussein to hide away or to wash away the location of the grave of Imam Al-Hussein, to stop people thinking that people will stop going to the ziyarah and will cut that connection they have with the imams. He done that numerously by different methods, by diverting the path of the water towards the grave of Imam Al-Hussein, trying to change the ma'alim, the resemblance of the area. There was a sidra, there was a tree that led people or showed the people the way, which was a alama, a symbol, guiding people towards the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. He ordered for that to be cut. Still people were going, they were able to find their ways. He went to the extreme point of ordering 1 of every 10 for them to be their limbs to be cut, for their eyes to be taken out. He imposed taxes for people if they wanted to go and visit Karbala and visit the grave of Imam Al Hussein salawatullah alayhi. So these were one of the some of the movements that Al-Mutawakkil done to stop people going back to Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. Again, one of the ways he tried to stop people from establishing that connection was that, as I said, he made Imam Al Hadi and Imam Al Askari move from their hometown to Surra Marra'a. Again, there is a narration that narrates that Imam Al Hadi, when he arrived, as soon as he arrived, when you exile someone, you prepare a place for them to be residing in. The narrations narrate that Imam Al Hadi and Imam Al Askari were treated in such a inhumane manner, trying to humiliate them, to belittle them, that he made them reside for a couple of days in Khan as-Sa'alik, which was a location designated for wrongdoers and those who had misbehaved.
Yeah, so actually I was hoping to discuss that aspect of things, inshallah, in another episode where we'll be talking about his martyrdom. But what I'm more interested in at the moment is, because you mentioned, for example, multiple issues with Al-Mutawakkil and his reign, and I do call it his reign because they saw it as a kingship more than they saw it as a caliphate. However, my main concern or my main question on this matter is, of course, this must be a very difficult climate for the Imam to live in, a difficult climate for his Shia as well. So in which manner did the Imam respond? For example, we looked at different issues, like the issues of the Golat, and you mentioned, for example, where he would order them that Nazihuna, do not include these attributes in us. In different occasions, they would, for example, even I've read the narration which Imam Al Hadi, it was a very interesting narration where he sat amongst his companions, and then he informed them that I'm going to the bathroom. And any individual would think, why would the Imam need to tell people I'm going to the bathroom? But the wisdom of the Imam was to show people that I am not a Lord, I am not a God, for I have the human needs of even to go to the bathroom. In terms, so that is mainly to do with specific sects, including to do with the political climate, the reign of Al-Mutawakkil, the reign of the Abbasid caliphs. What steps did the Imam take?
One of the steps that Imam alayhi salam took was to establish a network of wukala, a network of deputies. Because the importance of having an Imam amongst you is that you have continuous free access, because people on a daily basis, they have questions, they have problems, they have issues with the development of sciences, with the development of knowledge, with the intercession of the Islamic Ummah in terms of knowledge that they were going through. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they played a very important role of their presence whilst they were in Medina, for example. But Imam alayhi salam, as it was set from the time of Al-Imam As-Sadiq and Imam Musa ibn Ja'far, they prepared the Ummah for a period of time that they were going to be used to having their Imam away from them, غائب عنهم,
in an occultation.
In occultation. And that they need to get used to meeting the representatives of the Imam, paving the way for the presence of the wukala, paving the way for the presence of deputies that were going to act as a link between the Imam and his followers. Because now they knew, the hukam, the tyrants, they knew that they need to target the Imam. But after targeting the Imam, after taking the Imam out of his usual home habitat to somewhere secluded where people were not able to get access to, maybe it was in the actual courts, the palaces, the buildings that were under the control of these tyrants, or move them totally to a different country. People are not able to travel all the time. It was difficult. So the only way was the Imam going to establish this connection and still continue their work in guiding people towards the right path, was through the deputies, the wukala. And at that time, there were 4 important locations that the Imam alayhi salam had strong wukala, strong network of deputies in. The first was Baghdad, like Iraq, Baghdad, Madain. There was an area called As-Sawad, which is generally the title given to Ard al-Iraq, and Al-Kufa. Kufa was still a very important location, a stronghold for the presence of the Shia, the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. The second was Al-Basra and Ahwaz.
Yeah.
There were very important senior deputies and companions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that were from Basra, that are also from Ahwaz. The third important stronghold for the Shia, that the Shia had presence in at the time of Imam Al Hadi, was Qom and Hamadan. If you go and read the narrators and the companions of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, you will find a strong presence from the time of Imam Al-Sadiq, going on to Imam Al-Kadhim and Imam Al-Rida and Imam Al-Jawad. You will still find narrators by the name of Al-Qummi, or Al-Hamadani, or attributing to the locations that they used to live in. And again, the fourth stronghold was again Hijaz, Mecca, Medina, Yemen, and North Africa, which was Morocco, Algeria, Sudan today, Egypt, Misr. So these were kept under the control in terms of fiqh and jurisprudence and knowledge and the connection with the Imam by the network of deputies and wukala that the Imam had. This was one of the ways. Another way was whilst the Imam alayhi salam was still in Medina, because totally the Imam lived for 40 or 41 years and a couple of months. 20 years he lived in Medina, or between Medina and Baghdad, and the rest he lived in Samarra. So 21 years the Imam lived in Samarra. The time that he was in Medina, he was able to answer or to stop to the devious beliefs, like the beliefs of the Golat, or the accusations that they used to be accused with in terms with the Holy Quran and the narrations and the exegesis and the tafsir of the Holy Quran that the Shia used to be accused of believing in. So how did Imam Al Hadi salamullahi alayh relate to the Golat, for example? The Imam had a very strong position, because it's not a joke. And when there is a path of deviation, you need to stand firmly and show your stance.
Especially for the infallible.
Especially for the Imam. Because the whole and the sole reason that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent prophets and messengers and placed awsiya, representatives, amongst people, was to guide them towards the right path. And one of the ways that Imam alayhi salam showed that this path is a wrong path, by actually naming and shaming. Even if it meant that these individuals at one point of time they were close companions, they were part of your group, which leads us to our life today. If we can quickly mention that, brothers and sisters, there are and there have been throughout history individuals who associated themselves with Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, but at a later stage they deviated from the path of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So we have to be very careful of whom we take as role models that will lead us to Ahlul Bayt. Bear that in mind. Naming and shaming those individuals who at one point of time they were ulama. They weren't normal individuals. For example, Imam Al Hadi salamullahi alayhi, he named Ali ibn Hasaka. Ali ibn Hasaka and his students, they were individuals who believed that the Imam was he was the Allah. They attributed attributions of Allah to Imam Al Hadi salamullahi alayhi. The Imam alayhi salam said no. He warned his Shia. Said Ali ibn Hasaka and his students, because he used to be alim.
Yeah.
He used to sit down, have circles, and he had talamida, he had students studying under him. So the Imam said, no, beware of this individual, and this individual is leading people towards deviation. Another individual the Imam named and shamed was Al-Qasim Al-Sha'rani Al-Yaqtini, or Al-Yaqtini.
Yeah.
Or another individual who was known by Al-Qasim ibn Yaqtin, Al-Hasan ibn Muhammad ibn Bab Al-Qummi. So these individuals, they weren't only from Hijaz or from Iraq, they were all over the place. So this was the position of the Imam and the importance of the presence of the Imam, even if it wasn't the fact that you can see the Imam, but through his deputies, he made it clear that I want you to make people aware of these individuals.
Yeah.
Faris ibn Hatim ibn Mahawayh al-Qazwini, from Qazwin. Muhammad ibn Nasir al-Fihri al-Namiri. Muhammad ibn Musa al-Sharifi. And to an extent that there are individuals that the Imam alayhi salam, he cursed. When the Imam curses someone, when the Imam says La'natullahi alayhi after someone's name, means that the Imam is saying that this individual, he is cursed. Be aware of them, as they have cursed other historical figures. So part of those who Imam curses under the title of Man la'anahum al-Imam Al Hadi.
Yeah.
Muhammad ibn Nasir al-Namiri, Faris ibn Hatim al-Qazwini. And the Imam, when he curses someone, he is informing people that he doesn't have anything to do with me.
In fact, that person has nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Yeah, when he says religion, that I am cursing him, which means that I am the Imam who was appointed by Allah and I am disassociating myself from him, which means that Islam is disassociating themselves.
And he is removed from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Imam alayhi salam, he made it apparent of his disassociation, bara'ah, from an individual, as we named before, Ibn Baba al-Qummi wa ghayrihi. These were individuals the Imam very clearly disassociated himself from them.
Yeah.
For example, there are individuals the Imam not only disassociated himself from them by cursing, but there were individuals that the Imam called for them to be killed. Al-Imam da'a biqatlihim. That's why how deviant those individuals were. Their presence was fearful for the lives of the Muslims. For example, there was an individual by the name of Muhammad ibn Nasir al-Namiri, who, as I said, claimed that he was a prophet. He claimed he was a prophet, and that Imam Al Hadi has sent him to prophethood for him to track people towards his path. So
not only was he of the Golat, but he also took that as an opportunity to basically claim prophethood.
Exactly. And this individual, he used to believe in an idea of tanasukh.
Yeah.
And he was of al-Mughalin in Abu al-Hasan al-Imam Al Hadi. And he claimed that, as I said, Imam Al Hadi was الرب الربوبية ويقول بالإباحة للمحارم وتحليل نكاح الرجال بعضهم بعضا. Again, which is a problem that we are going through these days, that there are individuals who, in the name of Islam, in the name of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they call people towards tahleel al-maharim and the rest of these wrong acts. Imam Al Hadi called for the killing of this deviant individual. And there are many other names. that I've compiled all of these names.
It's important to also distinguish that the fact that the Imam wasn't just going around issuing verdicts to kill people, but rather there were certain individuals within the community that were deviating other individuals, and their
presence was dangerous.
Yeah.
They were calling people, they were advising people, they were encouraging people to go and commit crime.
Ahsantum.
They were encouraging people to go and commit adulterous acts, you know, committing zina, committing, you know, haram acts that stopped people from living a normal, decent life.
Ahsantum. And on top of that, those individuals were also claiming
that they were prophets and messengers sent by Imam Al Hadi, their Lord, their God.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
Do you know what, Sayyidina? You'll actually be very surprised. But we've not only did we have we finished, but we've gone overtime. And it's actually quite interesting because now that you mentioned that, we say افتحت أبواب هواي, like there's a lot of different doors that we want to delve in now to talk about. Luckily, we do have another episode coming up on the martyrdom of Imam Al Hadi alayhi salam. So for any viewers who want to know more about his life, they can definitely tune in then. Of course, that won't be enough as well, but inshallah we'll try to cover as much as we can. Thank you so much once again, Sayyidina.
Thank you
for joining us and for everything that you have shared.
Jazakumullah khair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Dear viewers, inshallah, all the days of the happiness of the Ahlul Bayt are days of happiness upon you in your household, days filled with light and happiness for you and all your loved ones, inshallah. And until another time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.